Hello, fellow Zimbabweans. Um, we are looking at the imminent introduction of bond notes into the system in Zimbabwe tomorrow. Now, I just thought it's worth me sharing my ideas of what I think about these bond notes. Basically, bond notes are a piece of paper where the government writes a message that says, we, the government, owes whoever holds that piece of paper a certain amount of money with the promise that they would pay that money back. Now, with our situation, the Zimbabwean bond note, there's an added dimension to it. The government is then saying that piece of paper, 1 unit of that piece of paper, is equivalent to the United States dollar. So, here is the problem. The problem is, in order for them to say they promised to pay that money, they had to borrow money from somewhere else to guarantee that they would pay that money. The problem is, we've been here before, haven't we? I don't know if you guys remember the $1 trillion days when we were all trillionaires. At that time, the government was also promising us to pay us money. And they kept promising and kept promising and kept promising until they promised so much to the extent that they couldn't fulfill their promise. So they then decided that, well, what if we tell these people that we're not going to pay them their money? Before they decided that, they all sold all their paper money to the public. So it is the citizens who were left with bucketfuls and sackfuls of these $1 trillion IOUs that were worth nothing. Now, in any given situation when a government issues bonds, there's always two sides of the story. The guy who is giving you the bond, in other words, the government in our case, who is promising to pay the money back, have to be willing to promise. On the other hand, the guy who is receiving the bond has to be willing to accept that bond. Zimbabwe's situation is different, especially this time round. The guy who promises to pay is willing to sign the IOU, but the public, the citizens who are supposed to accept that money, don't want the money. So, the situation we're facing in Zimbabwe at the moment is where the government is saying, we will give you that money anyway, and we'll promise you we'll pay you that money back at some point. But then, here's the problem. Who trusts this government to give you your money back in a few years' time? That's just one of the problems. The other problem is there is no way that the bond note is going to hold the value that the government tells us it is worth. You know why? The reason is the value of money is very dependent on what a receiver and a holder of that bond money believes it to be. In other words, if I'm giving you money and I say it's $1, you have to believe it's $1 too in order for it to be actually $1. If I give you a bond note and I say it's $1 and you know it's a bond note, that bond note is not going to hold its value. So from day one, we are likely to face a big collapse in the value of that bond note. Now, as in many cases before, it is always the citizen who picks up the tab. And the rich guys who are running the government will actually be prepared well in advance to make sure that they cover themselves and they don't suffer from any of this. So Here is my message to all Zimbabweans in the world. I think that if these guys really want the bond note, let's give them the bond note. If they want to force us to accept the bond note, let's give them the bond note. So, my proposal is, when next time you go to Choppies, use your bond notes there. When you go to a government office, use your bond note there. Take your rand and your US dollar and your puller and hide it under the pillow. Because if you don't hide your hard currency that's worth something, you're going to be left with another sack full of bond notes that are worth nothing. Thank you.